Now, the people in this country had been free for so long that they had built themselves something pretty special, and actually had become, as a middle class, or I don't know if it's middle class, but your average person here was richer than the average person anywhere else on the world. And they could have easily lived with a couple percentage points of tax that was being levied on them. But instead, what they saw it as was a long and winding road down to being slaves of Parliament and the King, and not even having the rights of your average British subject. They didn't even have that, so that's what they were upset about. One of the first key figures I'm going to talk about is Paul Revere, who I think most people have heard in school, The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, the poem, right? So does anybody know what Paul Revere was yelling as he rode throughout the countryside?
The regular.
There we go. We have some. You already have an Appleseed shirt on, right? So there you go. So, a key thing to also be thinking as we go through this story is that Paul Revere did not say the British are coming. That would have made no sense to anyone who was there, because they were all British. Every single person in this story is British. Woke up that morning being British, lived their whole lives reading British history, arguing British philosophy, going through all this stuff in the frame of mind that they were British. And then on this day, everybody had a real hard choice to make. Whether they were going to continue on with that, and many people did, or were they going to break with all of that and try and start something new. Paul Revere's Midnight Ride didn't even start at midnight. It actually started a week before, when actually the Right to Conquer started a week before. And months before any of this, Paul Revere had already rode out several times. There was a powder alarm in Somerville, where I live, where there's a place, there's a powder house where everybody would keep their powder all in one spot, all the arms in one spot, so if anything would happen, everybody would run to this central place. Or if something bad happened, it would be in one place far away from everybody's actual house, where fire wouldn't get to it and everything like that. So King George had decided that since he got rid of the Massachusetts provincial government, causing him so much problems with the Tea Parties and the Boston Massacre and all that stuff, causing him so much trouble that he's just going to abolish it, close down the port of Boston, and go take their arms. So instead of being the Massachusetts provincial arms, these would be the King's arms now. So he sent a couple redcoats on a boat, and in the middle of the night, they emptied out the powder house and caused not only a powder alarm, but it was a powder panic. People thought that this was directly going to lead to a couple thousand redcoats marching over the bridge from Boston and going out conquering literally the entire colony and taking it over. There were so many people marching. See, the way the word spread of this alarm was a panic. So people for a long time after the redcoats had come and gone and taken it were getting the message that the war had started in Boston. It's time to go fight. And there were actually more people coming from other colonies towards Boston than there were on April 19th. And the numbers are staggering for April 19th. I can't imagine what they were for then. But it was a Chicken Little sort of moment where people would leave their homes, start marching towards Boston ready for war, and then somebody else would come up and say, oh, no, well, the redcoats, they took that stuff, they got in, and it's over. Nobody's fighting over it. They just stole it and got away with it. So a lot of people were turned back on the way. It was a bit of a mess. So Paul Revere, with the help of, actually I should say, Dr. Joseph Warren in Boston, with the help of Paul Revere and several other riders, set up a system where that the word would spread quickly and efficiently and effectively, really, to all the corners where it had to get to. So there were several such alarms, with one going up to Salem, Massachusetts, one going up to Portsmouth. These are two alarms in the middle of winter in Massachusetts where Paul Revere is riding hundreds of miles in the snow, outrunning British Navy ships to get to where he has to go, that are following up along the coast, and alerting the townspeople there. And these are dangerous missions. Some of his help is getting arrested, sent to prison ships. So he's well practiced in this. He successfully turned away the British at several places. So about a week before April 19th in Concord, Dr. Joseph Warren gets the news that General Gage, who was the governor of Massachusetts, the British royal governor, has been very happy with these expeditions, at least the first one. But the second two had failed, thanks to Paul Revere, so he's going to try somewhere a little closer. It's Concord, Mass., only 18 miles away. He thinks he could get there and back within a day. And he has reports of a couple cannon that are there, held by one Colonel Barrett of Concord. So Paul Revere goes out a week ahead of time, says, the regulars are going to be out, they're going to be looking for your cannon, why don't you go move them? And not only that, but they're going to take the powder, the ball, all that stuff. So anything that you have in Concord that could probably be seen as contraband, you should probably move it out to Lowell or somewhere even further where they can't get to it. So the people of Concord spent all week moving everything that was of any consequence. Finally, April 19th comes. It's about midnight. And Paul Revere gets word from not one but many people that the regulars are really going for it. This is the night. Now, he gets on his horse only after he has to cross the river. So they send two guys out. Actually, Paul Revere wasn't the only plan. He was actually, well, yeah, I guess he was the main plan. But there were a couple other plan B's and C's to go along with this. So first off, everybody's heard of the lights in the Old North Church, right? One if by land, two if by sea. Anybody ever heard that old ditty, right? So that was just plan B. There was actually another rider who had left from the south part of Boston. His name was William Dawes. And Paul Revere left on a rowboat with the oars silenced by a impromptu, I guess some impromptu help from a young woman in town who actually gave him her breeches to wrap the oars with. And he rowed under the mast of the HMS Somerset, which is a huge British ship of the line, lined with Marines along the decks, on high alert, waiting for anything funny to happen. And luckily for Paul Revere, not only was he quiet, but he was under the shadow of the moon. He just happened to hit the right spot on the Somerset, where he was covered by its own hull, and went right up close to it, sailed by without any incident. He got on a horse, started riding, and as Paul Revere rode, he didn't just kind of run through the countryside yelling. He would go to a specific spot and knock on a door, and someone would come out, and that person would either be in charge of getting the militia together for that town, or would be another rider who would go off and start riding in another direction. When that rider got to wherever he was going, somebody else would ride out in another direction from there, and they would both keep going. And this tree, this organic tree of riders, spread all over Massachusetts. It was actually about 70 different people that were out alerting the countryside. A lot of those guys we still don't know the names of to this day, because they were afraid. They didn't want anybody to know, even after we won independence, who they were, because they were afraid that the Redcoats would come back, which they did, 1812, right? So War of 1812, English came back for round 2. Not only do we not know who a lot of those riders are,